Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite 5 palettes from the drugstore, or at least in that drugstore price range. So what I mean is, I think all these palettes are under $20. Yes, they are. And basically, every time I go in Ulta or the drugstore, I just feel like the palettes of the drugstore have really been stepping up their game, and a lot of these palettes have inspired so many of my spring summer looks, one of which I'm wearing today. It's very bright, very bold, but I thought it's very editorial and very fun and just screams summer. So without further ado, here are my top 5 faves. So the first one I have is by L'Oreal, and it is the Paradise Enchanted Scented Eyeshadow Palette. And this says number 150. I didn't realize they had numbers, but it looks like this. And I think this palette is so pretty. So this palette right here contains 6 mattes and 6 shimmers, and what I love about this palette is they are very pigmented, like surprisingly pigmented for the drugstore, and I think that's such a great thing that we're seeing nowadays, that you can get beauty on a budget. I think that's great. And let me swatch them for you. And my favorite thing about this palette are these shimmers. They just pack such a punch. They are just like in your face. They work amazing as a brow bone highlight or inner corner highlight. Even these coppery shimmer tones right here, they're just like one swipe, just beautiful. You don't need a wet brush, you don't need MAC Fix Plus, any of that. They just work amazingly on their own, and I'm just so impressed with the variety in this palette and for the price. So this palette retails for $14.99, and if you have a coupon, you can always use that. When I got this, I purchased it with the blushes from this range at Ulta when they had buy one get one 50% off at Ulta, and I also stacked that with a coupon, so that's the best way to get extra savings. And I just think this is so pretty. It screams like spring summer to me, so I absolutely love it. It's a favorite, and I'll even be able to take it into fall with these browns and coppers. I think this is a very universal, easy to wear every day, and then also easy to just mix it up for something a little different than just a brown copper neutral eye with those peach tones. So I love this. I think it works for a lot of different skin tones, and I'll continue to use it. The next palette I want to mention is by Maybelline, and it is the City Mini palette, and these are so popular. I think this is called the Rooftop Bronzes, yep. And this is an easy go-to for, I don't know what I want to do. I want to keep it neutral. I want to go a little smoky. I want to keep it natural. I do a bold lip. This is a great palette to go towards, and I purchased this probably a few months ago, right when it first came out. So I want to say these have been out for a little while. Now, the thing about this palette is it is all shimmery, and I'll show you here. So all these have a little bit of shimmer to them, but don't be discouraged. You can use this palette on its own, so you don't need mattes. If you're someone that's like, no, I cannot work with anything but mattes, don't let this fool you. You can definitely blend this in the crease without looking like I have like a complete baked, shimmery eye. I think it looks very natural, even just blending it out with a fluffy brush in the crease and then tapping on or even wetting the brush to get an even higher intensity pigment. But even on its own, these swatch so beautifully, and with a brush or with a finger, however you like to apply them, I think they do such a great job, especially from the drugstore. And I don't think you can go wrong with any of the ones from this range. I also have the Downtown Sunrise palette as well, and I think these colors are just so pretty. Again, it's in that corally kind of peachy range, similar to the first palette I talked about, because I'm just so attracted to those colors right now. But anyways, I think these palettes are absolutely great. They're super easy to blend. One thing to be aware of is they are powdery, so if that's something that bothers you, just be aware. There is powder, there is kick up, but because of that kick up and powder, that's what makes them so easy to blend. They're like butter, very fluffy. So I love these palettes, they're so pretty. And then that being said, with those Maybelline palettes, I wanted to touch on the Lemonade Craze palette by Maybelline. Now this one has a lot of mixed reviews on Ulta, and I can definitely see why. I don't think all the colors in this palette are a hit, but I wanted to keep this on my favorites for drugstore palettes of summer because the colors in this palette are just so inspiring. I think this is something completely different that we've seen from higher end brands, but also from other drugstore brands. So I was very excited to get this palette. I'd say the biggest dud in this palette is probably the shade that they're trying to market to you the most, which is kind of sad, and it is the Lemonade Craze. So the one the palette is named after. It's the most pathetic shade in this whole palette, but if that's a shade that you like, I would just say substitute it for a single shadow from Colourpop or something else, because all the other shades in this palette work really well for me and they perform really great. So don't let that deter you. It's a beautiful palette. Again, the pigmentation is great. I think Maybelline just needs to work on their mattes more, and maybe that's why that's something they don't focus on so much in the City Mini palettes, because they do know their strengths. But I'm glad that they are trying to reach out and explore different finishes and also different color ranges for their clientele. One thing I did notice is these palettes right here. You can tell they have the exact same packaging, of course, different layout of the shadows, but L'Oreal does own Maybelline, so they are the same exact packaging as far as that goes. Now, I checked the formula, and for the most part, most of the ingredients in here are the same or very similar. They're just arranged in a different way. So if you're curious about how these formulas compare to each other, I will say the Maybelline is a little bit more work to blend, but totally worth it because the colors are beautiful, as opposed to the Paradise palette where these just effortlessly blend with each other. So just something to be aware of. I do love both palettes. I wouldn't want to part with them, and I think they're both beautiful. All right, and the next palette I have is by Flower Beauty, and this is the Wanderlust palette, and I am in love with this palette. Ever since I saw Tati talk about it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so inspired by those colors. I need that palette in my life. And this is one of the colors I'm wearing on my eyes today, this green color right here. But this is considered the Downtown Dusk palette. I do know that they have, I think, 2 other palettes in this range. I know that there's definitely a more natural toned one, and I think there's a bolder one that might have like a bright blue in it, I want to say. I did see it at my local Ulta. They have a Flower Beauty display there. But these colors are just beautiful, and I thought the green especially went on really well. Now, I did mix a little bit of a green shade from my Anastasia Beverly Hills Prism palette, just because I did want a matte, and this green here does have a shimmer to it, but I thought it brought that color to life so much more with that little bit of shimmer. And I actually started with that shimmer in the crease. I just wanted to build up a little bit intensity, mainly just in the outer corner there. So most of the color on my eyes is this green, this lime green color from this palette, and I think it's just so pretty. It's something that looks very editorial. I know Drew Barrymore, when she was talking about this palette, said she was really inspired by higher end lines like Chanel and Dior, how they have some very neutral tones or warm tones, you know, some browns, but then they have a couple of pops of color. And I think she did a phenomenal job with this palette. I want to say this retails for $10.99, but again, it's considered drugstore Ulta, so if you pick up a lipstick with it and use a $3.50 off 15, you can definitely take that price down a little bit and also get a great other product from them to try. So I absolutely love this palette. I can't wait to try a bunch of other looks as well. But yeah, I think it's so pretty and something completely different than we've seen from the drugstore. So such a fun palette. And then the last one I have is from Colourpop. So I'm adding this in my drugstore list here just because it is definitely in that drugstore price range, and you can find it at Ulta now, so I think that's great. It's more accessible. And this is the Dream Street Kathleen Lights and Colourpop palette. And regardless of how you feel about Kathleen Lights, I think Colourpop and Dream Street, or Colourpop and Kathleen Lights and Dream Street, did a phenomenal job with the shades in this palette. I think all of them are highly pigmented. They swatch really nicely. They blend really beautifully. I'd say my biggest complaint is maybe these blue tones right here. They do get a little muddy, more so this one right in the corner here. If you do the lower lash line, you just got to be careful. I think they work better with a wet brush, But other than that, I think this palette is great. It's a great price point, and I think the colors in here are stunning. I love the warm tones with some great, like an orange. This is very Anastasia Beverly Hills to me. It's like orange soda kind of vibes. I think she did a really good job deciding what colors to arrange in this palette and a way for her customers to get a lot of different looks from just a few shades here. So I think that's great. I will say between this one and the Maybelline Lemonade Craze palette, you'll see they have a similar shade in here. So Sweet Dreams, which is this shade right here in the Dream Street palette, and Ice Pop, oops, let me pull it up here, and Ice Pop on this one here are similar in shade, that kind of like pretty red color. Now I will say the Dream Street, if you're looking for more of a punch, this one is the way to go. So if you're looking between these two palettes and you're trying to decide one or the other, I definitely recommend Dream Street over the Lemonade Craze. As fun as this one is, I just think if you're looking for a little bit more color and variety as far as the pack for pigment goes, this one is definitely the bang for the buck. So anyways, I don't know, I just kind of wanted to hop on here and explain why I love some of these palettes from the drugstore. I think there's so many out there, and it's hard when I'm going through the aisles to figure out what is the best and what's going to get me a lot of different range of looks. And I think these have really made the mark as far as giving me something I can do an everyday look with, but also something a little bit wild, a little bit crazy, but also a pop of color. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you loved it, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.